Hello, learners. Welcome back to the Motivated Mind Zone.
We are diving into a topic today that we have received so many requests for.
Oh, constantly.
It's the universal goal, I think, but also, the universal frustration for millions of people, how to achieve true fluency in English.
Absolutely. And if you're listening, you've probably hit that wall.
hmm
You can understand a complex article, you could even ace a grammar test, but then,
But then it's time to speak.
yes, exactly, to have a real spontaneous conversation and everything it just locks up. That feeling of being stuck or nervous or just not sure why you aren't improving faster, we're here to dismantle that today.
That is the mission. We've pulled together 8 really concrete, actionable steps that kind of form a roadmap. This isn't about buying another textbook or an app.
No.
This is about changing how you approach the language every single day. This deep dive is your shortcut past that hesitation and hopefully straight into confident communication.
Okay, let's unpack this. We have 8 steps. And the first one, the most foundational one, before you even touch a vocabulary list, is all about mindset.
This is so critical, and it's where almost every learner trips up. They have the wrong definition of fluency.
What do you mean?
They think fluency means speaking perfectly, with
Mm,
no accent, no pauses, and this is the big one. Without a single mistake, that is a fantasy.
right.
Fluency, in reality, means speaking comfortably.
Comfortably.
Right.
Okay, but let me push back on that a little bit. What if I feel comfortable talking about my daily routine, but I completely freeze up when I have to discuss something complex, like, I don't know, market trends?
That's a great point, and it's a sharp distinction. Comfort here means your brain is operating mostly in English, so you're minimizing that delay from, translating in your head.
Okay.
But even a native speaker pauses or makes mistakes when talking about complex topics. The difference is the fluent non-native speaker doesn't stop. They don't panic or feel defeated.
They just adapt.
They adapt. They keep the conversation moving forward. They are comfortable with the messiness of it all.
That distinction changes everything. Because when we ask learners what keeps them silent, it's that fear. The fear of the mess, of the mistakes.
And here's the surprising nugget from all the research. Mistakes are not a sign of failure. Not at all. They are proof, actual proof that you are learning, that you're stretching your boundaries.
So they're like data points.
Exactly. Valuable feedback. Every error tells you exactly what part of your language system needs a little adjustment.
So if you can just accept it an accent, or pausing to think, or making errors, if you accept that it's all just a necessary part of the process,
That's the moment.
that's when you unlock your ability to actually communicate. You stop trying to be a textbook and you just start living in the language.
Exactly. Perfectionism is the biggest enemy of progress. You just have to remove that psychological barrier, and that's when real progress happens.
Okay, so if mindset is the foundation, where does the daily training actually begin? It has to start with input. Step 2, input and listening.
Right. You can't speak a language you don't hear enough. It's that simple.
And this means surrounding yourself with English every single day.
Every day. And we're not just talking about, a formal 1-hour lesson. We mean passive and active exposure. Podcasts, YouTube videos on topics you actually like.
Movies, music.
Anything, even 10 minutes a day, starts to fundamentally reshape how your brain processes the sounds and structures of English.
But what should you be focusing on when you listen? Because I feel like just having a sitcom on in the background, that's probably not enough, right?
No, it's not. The key is how you listen. Don't listen like a student studying for a test, trying to break down every sentence grammatically.
Okay.
Listen like a child absorbing a language. Focus on the natural rhythm, the melody of it, the intonation. You need to internalize the music of the language.
That focus on rhythm, that's a perfect lead-in to step 3. This is the really active part, imitation, or, as it's often called, shadowing.
Shadowing is phenomenal. It really is. Because it's A physical practice. You pick a speaker you like, an actor or a podcast or anyone, and you try to mimic them almost at the same time.
That sounds incredibly difficult, though. You're not just repeating after them, you're trying to copy their
No.
essence. The pauses, the tone, the speed.
It sounds hard, but there's a practical way to start.
How do you do it without just getting overwhelmed?
You start small, put on headphones, listen to just a short segment, maybe 30 seconds. At first, just whisper what they say right after they say it. Don't even worry about the meaning, just focus on the sound.
Just the sound.
Yeah. Then, once you're comfortable, you increase your own volume until you're speaking at the same level. You're basically training your mouth muscles and your brain's processing speed to physically make English sounds.
So it bypasses that need for full comprehension. It forces the language to become more of a physical habit. That's a huge insight.
That's it, exactly. It's muscle memory. Even if you don't get every word, you're training yourself to sound natural and confident, which, feeds right back into step one, that mindset of comfort.
This is where it gets really interesting for me. Shifting from that passive input to active, really purposeful output, which is step 4.
Right, and this step challenges learners to avoid just random practice. If you only practice random sentences from a book, you'll only be ready for random situations you'll probably never be in.
So fluency grows when the practice actually matches your real life.
Your actual usage, yes.
So practicing with purpose means creating scenarios that are relevant to you, like ordering a coffee, introducing yourself in a meeting, talking about your hobbies.
Precisely. And the single best, most accessible way to do this is self-talk. Create little mini conversations for your day and just repeat them.
Okay, I know this sounds kind of silly, but I find myself talking to my dog in English all the time. Is that actually productive?
100%. Talk to yourself, talk to your dog, talk to your plants while you're cooking.
Okay, good.
When you do that, you're forcing your brain to retrieve language in a totally low-stakes environment. That process dramatically reduces hesitation later on when a high-stakes moment arrives, like a job interview. Your brain's already warmed up.
All right, moving on. Step 5 deals with the building blocks, but it really challenges the old way of learning vocabulary. We're talking about learning in chunks.
That's right. We need to just abandon those endless lists of isolated words. Your brain struggles to assemble them under pressure. Instead, learn real conversational phrases or chunks.
Can you give us some examples of these, like high-utility chunks?
Sure. Think about transition phrases. Things like, as far as I know, or to be honest at the end of the day. You know what I mean?
Right, things you hear all the time.
All the time. They're pre-packaged linguistic units. When you use a chunk, you don't have to think about the grammar of each individual word.
And that's the key benefit, isn't it? They sound incredibly natural, but more importantly, they give your brain this massive efficiency boost.
It's cognitive efficiency. You speak so much faster because you're not translating word by word. By word in your head, you just retrieve a whole block of meaning instantly.
Okay, so we've covered mindset, input, imitation, purposeful practice, and vocabulary chunks. Step 6 is the one that forces accountability, even if it makes you cringe a little.
It really does. The recording habit.
Ah, yes.
It is uncomfortable at first, and most learners skip it, but it's so necessary. Just use your phone's voice recorder. Describe your day for 2 minutes and listen back.
Why is hearing yourself so crucial? I mean, most of us hate the sound of our own voice anyway.
Because when you listen back, you can track your progress objectively. You can clearly identify where you need to improve your pronunciation or where you pause too long. You turn that vague feeling of, I'm not good enough, into concrete data.
So it becomes, I need to work on my the sounds instead of I'm bad at English.
Exactly. And the counterintuitive finding is that it also builds confidence because you often sound much, much better than you think you do.
We are our own harshest critics.
Always. This tool is both a confidence builder and an objective diagnostic. It's powerful.
So we've built the internal structure, the practice methods. Now we need the real-world application. This brings us to step 7, real conversation.
This is where true fluency is forged. You need real, messy, human conversation. I like to think of grammar books as the theory of driving.
Oh.
Conversation is like driving in rush hour, in the rain. It's stressful, but that stress is how you learn to react.
The act of speaking with a real person, even with mistakes, even if you freeze up, it teaches you more about immediate language retrieval than anything else.
It forces retrieval under pressure, and it exposes you to how unpredictable dialogue is. The interruptions, the slang, the topic changes. You have to embrace the struggle.
So for the listener who doesn't live in an English-speaking country, where can they find these indispensable, messy conversations?
There are so many options now. Language exchange apps are great. You trade, say, 15 minutes of English for 15 of your native language, or you could join online communities for hobbies you already love.
Right, so the focus is on the topic, not the language.
Yes. When the topic is engaging, the fear of making mistakes just shrinks because your desire to communicate your idea is so much stronger.
And that brings us to the final step. Step 8, the ultimate key that really ties all of the other 7 together, consistency.
This is the non-negotiable one. Fluency does not come from studying for 3 hours once a week whenever you feel motivated.
No.
It comes from practicing for 10 minutes every single day, even when you're tired, even when you're unmotivated. That small daily action is the pattern we see in every single successful language learner.
It's that compounding interest for your brain. One massive effort just doesn't work as well as these tiny, consistent inputs.
Exactly. You have to treat your English practice like brushing your teeth. It's just something you do automatically without debating whether you feel like it. If you skip brushing your teeth for a month, you have a problem. It's the same with your fluency.
Okay, let's do a quick recap of those core 8 steps.
All right, first, change your mindset. Aim for comfort, not perfection. Second, flood your life with input. Listen for the rhythm. Third, imitate native speakers through shadowing.
Fourth, practice real situations with purposeful self-talk.
Mhm.
Fifth, learn vocabulary in chunks, not single words.
Sixth, record yourself to get that objective feedback. Seventh, go find real, messy conversations. And finally, number 8, stay consistent.
So what does this all mean? I mean, at the end of the day, if you systematically follow these steps, fluency becomes not just possible, but I think inevitable. It's a roadmap built on habit, not genius.
Which leaves one last important question for you, the listener, to think about. Since fluency is built on consistency and small daily actions, what specific 10-minute action from these steps, whether it's whispering a shadowing script or describing your commute to yourself, what one thing will you commit to starting today?
Start that commitment now. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into practical English fluency. We'll catch you next time in the Motivated Mind Zone.